You get a raise, a real one. Maybe it's a promotion, maybe you just switched jobs for 15% more. Maybe your boss finally recognized what you've been worth this whole time. You tell your friends. You feel like you finally made it. And then, 6 months later, you check your bank account, and somehow you're still stressed about money. Same anxiety, same tight feeling before payday, same where did it all go confusion. Except now you're making more money than you ever have in your life. Something's wrong here, and it's not your math. It's not that you're bad with money either. There's a trap that catches almost everyone who gets a raise, and it's so well disguised that most people never even realize it's happening to them.
Most people think the solution to feeling broke is simple. Make more money, get the promotion, land the higher-paying job. Once the salary goes up, the stress goes away. That's the whole plan for most people's entire financial life. Here's the problem. That plan doesn't actually work the way everyone assumes it does. I've talked to people making $40,000 a year who feel financially secure, and I've talked to people making $150,000 a year who are one missed paycheck away from disaster. The salary isn't the variable that determines whether you feel wealthy. There's something else going on, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I call it the salary trap, and it's the reason so many people can double their income over a decade and still feel like they're right back where they started.
My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why smart, hardworking people who earn good salaries still end up stressed about their finances. If you've ever gotten a raise and wondered why it didn't actually change anything, stick around, because this video is going to explain exactly what's happening and how to fix it. Make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if this ends up helping you see your paycheck differently.
So, here's a question worth sitting with for a second. If your income doubled tomorrow, would you actually end up wealthier? Most people assume the answer is obviously yes. More money in means more money saved, more money invested, more financial breathing room. But that's not what happens for the vast majority of people. What happens instead is that their spending rises right alongside their income, almost like it's on a leash tied directly to their paycheck. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it's the engine that powers the salary trap. Think of it like a treadmill. You start walking, then the speed increases, so you walk faster to keep up, then it increases again, and you speed up again. You're working harder and harder, but you're still in exactly the same spot. That's what a raise feels like for most people. The number on the treadmill goes up, but they never actually move forward.
Here's how it usually plays out in real life. You're making $50,000 a year and living paycheck to paycheck. It's tight, but you manage. Then you get a promotion to $65,000. That extra $15,000 feels like a windfall, and it kinda is. But instead of directing most of that increase towards savings or investments, something interesting happens in your brain. You start upgrading. Maybe you move to a slightly nicer apartment because now you can afford it. Maybe you start eating out more because you deserve to celebrate the promotion. Maybe you finally get that car you've been eyeing because the higher salary means a bigger loan is approved. None of these decisions feel reckless in the moment. Each one seems completely reasonable given your new income. But add them up, and you're right back to spending almost everything you make, just at a higher number. This is where the psychology gets interesting, and it's something researchers have actually studied extensively. It's called hedonic adaptation, and it means humans quickly get used to whatever their new normal is, whether that's their income, their house, or their lifestyle. The nicer apartment that felt like a luxury for the first few months eventually just feels like your apartment. The new car stops feeling exciting and just becomes your car. Your brain resets its baseline expectation to match your new spending levy, and then it wants more again. This is exactly why lottery winners so often end up broke within a few years. It's not that they're irresponsible. It's that their spending expanded to match their new financial reality. Their baseline reset, and eventually they were right back where they started psychologically, just with a much bigger number attached to it. Research on this pattern is pretty consistent. Studies on lifestyle inflation have found that as household income rises, savings rates often stay flat or even decline for a large portion of earners, especially in the years right after a raise or promotion. In other words, the extra income isn't disappearing into some mysterious black hole. It's being absorbed almost immediately by lifestyle upgrades that feel justified in the moment, but add up to zero long-term progress.
Let's put real numbers on this so you can see exactly how much this costs you over time. Say you get a $500 monthly raise. That's a solid bump, roughly $6,000 a year. If you invested that entire raise instead of absorbing it into your lifestyle at an 8% average annual return, you'd have about $91,000 after 10 years. Keep going for 20 years, and you're looking at over $296,000 from a single raise you already earned and were already living without. Now, compare that to what actually happens for most people. The $500 gets absorbed within a few months. A slightly higher rent payment here, a couple more dinners out there, a subscription or two you didn't have before. 10 years later, that money is gone. Not stolen, not lost to some financial disaster, just quietly spent on a slightly nicer version of the same life you were already living, one invisible dollar at a time. And here's the part that makes this trap so dangerous. It doesn't just happen once. It happens every single time you get a raise for your entire career, unless you consciously interrupt the pattern. You get promoted at 25, your spending rises to match. You get promoted again at 30, your spending rises again. By the time you're 45, you might be earning triple what you made in your 20s, but if your baseline kept resetting every step of the way, you can end up with barely more in savings than someone who never got a single raise at all. The salary went up, the lifestyle went up right alongside it. The net worth never moved.
This is exactly why you'll meet people who earn incredible salaries and still feel financially fragile. A doctor making $250,000 a year with a house payment that assumes that income will never dip, 2 car payments, private school tuition, and a lifestyle calibrated exactly to match every dollar coming in. One slow month, one unexpected expense, one gap between jobs, and suddenly they're in trouble, despite an income most people would consider a dream. Meanwhile, you'll meet a teacher making $55,000 a year who has a fully funded emergency fund, consistent retirement contributions, and genuine financial peace of mind. The difference isn't the salary. It's whether the gap between income and spending actually exists, and whether that gap gets protected every time income rises.
Here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Lifestyle inflation doesn't just happen through big, obvious purchases. It sneaks in through dozens of small decisions that each feel completely justified on their own. You start ordering the better bottle of wine because you can afford it now. You upgrade your gym membership to the premium tier. You stop comparison shopping for flights because the time savings feels worth the extra cost now that you're earning more. Individually, none of these decisions seem like a big deal. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. Nobody sits down and consciously decides to blow their entire raise. It happens through 100 tiny upgrades that collectively consume every extra dollar, while still leaving you feeling like you're being responsible with money.
So how do you actually escape the salary trap? The fix isn't complicated, but it does require going against your natural instincts, which is exactly why so few people do it. The strategy is simple. Every single time your income increases, whether it's a raise, a bonus, a new job, or a side hustle picking up steam, you immediately direct a fixed percentage of that increase towards savings and investments before your lifestyle has a chance to expand around it. A common approach is to save at least half of every raise. If you get a $400 monthly increase, $200 goes straight into your investment account through an automatic transfer, and the other $200 is yours to enjoy, guilt-free. This matters because you're not asking yourself to live like a monk forever. You're just making sure that every raise builds your wealth as much as it improves your lifestyle, instead of only improving your lifestyle.
The key word here is automatic. If you rely on willpower to redirect that money every single month, lifestyle inflation will win eventually. Because willpower is unreliable and lifestyle upgrades are seductive. Set up the transfer the same week you get the raise, before the new number in your paycheck starts to feel normal. Increase your 401k contribution percentage the same day HR processes your raise. Move a fixed dollar amount into a brokerage account automatically every payday. The goal is to make wealth building the default and lifestyle inflation the thing that requires a conscious decision instead of the other way around.
There's another layer to this that's worth mentioning, because it explains why this trap feels so hard to escape even when you know about it. A lot of lifestyle inflation isn't really about the things themselves, it's about status. Once you're earning more, there's an unspoken pressure to look like you're earning more. Nicer clothes, a nicer car, a nicer apartment in a nicer part of town, because on some level, you feel like your lifestyle should match your job title. This is exactly the trap that keeps people stuck. The person who resists that pressure and keeps their spending relatively flat while their income rises isn't sacrificing anything meaningful. They're just choosing to be quietly wealthy instead of visibly comfortable. And one of those options actually builds long-term financial security, while the other one just looks good on the outside. If you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. A raise is not a reward you spend. It's an opportunity you protect. The people who actually build wealth over their careers aren't necessarily the ones who earned the biggest salaries. They're the ones who made sure that every time their income increased, at least part of that increase went to work for their future instead of getting absorbed into a slightly upgraded version of their current life. Your salary is not your net worth. It never has been. The gap between what you earn and what you keep is the only number that actually matters. And that gap is something you have complete control over, no matter what your next raise looks like. Protect it, automate it, and let your future self inherit the wealth your current lifestyle never got the chance to spend.